Hey, it's Brandi, and welcome to another episode of Brand New Bold. We are kicking off part 2 of the In This Black Body mini-series, and I couldn't be happier to be joined by my fave, Austyn Ross. Hey, Austyn.
Hey, Brandi.
So let's jump right into it. Who is Austyn Ross? Tell me about yourself.
Okay, so I guess the easy answer to that is just, I'm a 25-year-old Baltimore native. I went to the University of Maryland, College Park. I studied broadcast journalism there. And currently I serve as PR specialist for the NAACP. As a person, I am an advocate. I'm a reader, a cook, or I like to think of myself as a cook, a mentee, a mentor, and above all, I'm just a Black woman.
I love it. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. So I actually know you because we both majored in journalism at Maryland, but, as someone with a journalism background, it also seems like, you have a political background a little bit too. Your interests have kind of leaned more towards like political activism and working to like advance the livelihood of the Black community. And now you've worked for the NABJ, the Congressional Black Caucus, the Been Jealous for Governor campaign, and now the NAACP. So your resume is super, super impressive. So like what motivated you to get into this type of work?
So for starters, in college, we went to the University of Maryland Journalism School, which is called the Philip Merritt School of Journalism. As I went further along, like by junior, senior year, I kind of knew that I no longer wanted to be a journalist. Like I didn't want to be a reporter necessarily. I didn't want to be a producer. I just knew I didn't want to be like your typical print or broadcast journalist. So I kind of wanted to find something that I could use my skills with from the journalism school in a different way. I loved Maryland. I love the journalism school. I mean, I only chose University of Maryland for that school, but I just knew that I didn't really want to be a journalist. And both of us actually participated in NABJ in college. NABJ, the Maryland Association of Black Journalists, was a huge part of my college experience. I was like vice president, I think, junior year and co-president senior year. I loved NABJ. I loved all the friendships that I made and all the networking and building that I learned through NABJ. So I started to work for NABJ immediately after graduation, actually the day after graduation. It just made sense. I was going to be able to go to their convention that they were having. It was in New Orleans. I had done so much for NABJ my whole life. It just made sense. I could still use my journalism skills as a communications associate there. So I just hopped into NABJ and loved it. I loved working with a whole bunch of people that look like me. I loved being at convention. I loved like the relationships that I made. I loved that my bosses understood me. They related to me. I loved it. So I worked with them the summer after college, and then after convention was over and after everything settled down, I wanted to work in spaces that were similar to NABJ. So I applied to the Congressional Black Caucus, and somehow I loved that even more than NABJ. I loved being on the Hill, and I loved working with people in Congress. The only thing is that I kind of wanted to see the other side of things. So there's people on the Hill when you're elected, and then there's like your campaign when you're trying to get somebody elected. And a lot of people that work on the Hill have worked on a campaign at least once or twice just to get the experience. And I knew that working on campaigns was hard. So I wanted to work on one while I was young, while I still had a lot of energy, while I still like could jump around every day and follow someone around all day, every day and do their campaign. So that's kind of how I got interested in working for Ben Jealous's campaign. I was just looking for someone whose campaign I could get experience in, and Ben's values aligned with a lot of mine, and he was in my area. So, I just applied. I had worked for NABJ, I'd worked for the CBC, and I figured, it can't hurt. I didn't necessarily think I was going to get the job because it was a higher job than I had had previously. Mm-hmm. But I did, and I loved it. Working on a campaign, everyone says, is the hardest thing that you'll ever do. And it is the hardest job that I have ever done. Like, I feel like any job that you have after you do a working campaign will seem like the easiest job ever, because working a campaign, you're just working 7 days a week. You're working every single day. You're following someone who's running for office. So they're traveling all over the state all day, every single day. You have to go everywhere they go. It is just like exhausting work.
I can't even imagine that.
It's so rewarding, but it's so exhausting. Like, they're so right when they say you should do it when you're young if you want the experience, because there's no way I could be like 40 married with kids running around on a campaign. There's just no way I could be doing it. And then actually been jealous. I obviously like developed a relationship with him, following him around every day, working for him. And he used to be the president of the NAACP. So we worked with the NAACP sometimes during his campaign, and I had like met certain people. And after Ben lost the election, I found a position at the NAACP that was like my dream job. And Ben put me in contact with some of his old colleagues. And that's actually how I ended up there, because Ben used to be president there, and I, had worked his campaign. So all of the positions it's not that I knew in college I wanted to work in political activism. They're just positions that really spoke to me. They really were my skill set and what I wanted to do. So I kind of just ended up at the NAACP.
So yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. So, you currently are the public relations specialist for the NAACP. So what have your days been like lately, especially with the almost, daily incidents of police brutality?
So my position as public relations specialist, I think, is actually perfect for me. I just touched on how I knew I didn't really want to be a reporter at Maryland, but in my position now, I still work with reporters every day. I still work with producers, but instead of me having to come to them for the information or me trying to get like the inside scoop, I'm more on the other side, and I'm the person that they're contacting when they want one of our senior leaders on their television show, when they want to interview somebody for their newspaper that they work for, or whenever they want one of our leaders, or they want, the NAACP scoop. I'm kind of like their liaison. So I still get to use the same skills. I still get to work with journalists and everything, but I'm just kind of on the other side of it now. So that's pretty what my day-to-day work is at the NAACP. I'm pretty much always talking to a reporter, a producer, a writer, some form of the media. Public relations is basically just media relations. So I like that position, and that I'm still doing what I wanted to do. But what I will say about obviously everything has picked up tenfold during the last month and a half with everything that's been going on. But working for the NAACP is always exhausting. Everything that has been going on, the last 2 years that I've been working at the NAACP that maybe not everybody else has heard about, or maybe you hear about it here and there. You hear like all the injustices that are happening to Black people right now have been happening to Black people since we were even a thought. So it's not like the work that we're doing now is that much different than the work that I was always doing. Even, when I'm sitting in on interviews at the NAACP and we're thinking about bringing on people to our team, I always ask them, like, are you prepared to have to deal with rough situations and hard situations every single day? Like, do you have a way that you can decompress when you go home? Because our work is heavy all the time, and you don't want to take that home with you. You really have to learn how to separate work from home, which is difficult with our job, especially my job being media. Like, you're always working, you always have to know what's going on in the world.
Right.
If something
always
happens,
on.
Right, you're always on. If something happens, I can't say like, well, I'm not supposed to be working right now. Like, something happens, you have to reply with the NAACP. So I feel like our work is always heavy. Obviously, it's been insane during the past month and a half. One of the main things that has changed within my role in the past month and a half is I've been working with a lot more brands than I used to work with. I used to always work with journalists and reporters in the press, but since so many brands want to work with the NAACP now, like Gap wants to work with us, and like Philly wants to work with us, and different makeup brands and Legos, and everybody wants to work with us now. The NFL wants to work with us. So we have to meet with these brands. A lot of people want to do donations and pledges to us, but we want to make sure that they're not just like, giving their money just so they can check off their money and say that they gave their money.
Yeah.
We can actually implement like changes within these brands, see what they're doing to bring on change and like how they're trying to be better. So that's how my role has drastically changed, I'd say the most within the last month and a half, as I'm just working with a lot more brands and on a lot more brand calls to see how we can get brands to be more inclusive, see how we can partner with them in the NAACP, how we can both help each other out.
Okay. And this might be like a dumb question on my part, but like, what are you looking for in a company when you decide like, hey, we want to make your brand more inclusive, or we want to work with you? What kinds of things are you looking for?
Right now, the biggest thing that we're looking for is effort. I'll give one example, but I won't say like the name of the brand. But one brand wanted to collaborate on a makeup palette with us, and it was going to be like a palette that was geared towards Black and brown girls and like have shades that worked with us, like an eyeshadow palette. And then some of the proceeds would go to the NAACP. And, you know, at first I thought it was a great idea. I was like, absolutely, like, why not?
Right.
And we met with them. And then meeting with them in our little Zoom call, I realized that they didn't have any Black people on their staff. And I was like, there's no way that we can recommend this
right.
to Black and brown girls when no Black and brown girls were like even a part of the process of creating it. Like, there's no way that I can partner with you. So I guess one of the main signs that we're looking for is inclusivity. Even companies that haven't always been the most inclusive in the past, just like effort that they really do care, they really do want to change, they really do realize what's going on is wrong, and they want to make substantial change. They don't just want to like check off a box. They actually want to change. That's what I'm mainly looking for. And with most companies, that has seemed to be the case thus far.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so I want to shift gears here a little bit. So Malcolm X gave a speech where he said, you know, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And, you know, unfortunately, over 50 years later, this is still true. But then I look at you as a Black woman who has this huge opportunity to use her voice on this really large platform like the NAACP. So talk to me about what it is that keeps you wanting to fight, especially for Black women as well as Black trans women.
Absolutely. So, okay, I think that just because, you know, certain women reach certain platforms, they have certain standards, you can look at Meghan Markle and say, well, she became Duchess, or look at Michelle Obama, Shonda Rhimes, Kamala Harris. You can look at so many Black women and say like, well, they have it all. They made these platforms. They still beat the odds. They did this, that, and the third. But until every Black woman and every person, period, honestly, has those same rights to education and to healthcare, those same opportunities for success, that same support, until everyone has those opportunities, there's more work to be done. So I'm still working.
Yeah. And I actually want to kind of parallel that in a way, because, you know, I feel like there is this stereotype where Black women, once you reach success, like that's it, like you've accomplished it, you've reached your goals, but we still have to deal with the stereotypes from people who aren't necessarily in the Black community. So what is the biggest stereotype you've encountered as a Black woman from people who may not be Black women, or even if they are Black women?
I think the biggest stereotype that I've faced within the last 3 years since I've graduated, or the biggest thing that I feel like people have been assuming, is that I've worked for organizations like NABJ, Ben Jealous, CBC, NAACP almost by default, kind of like
they needed to check the box of a Black woman. Okay.
No, sorry. Kind of like they think I got those positions because of default, or because I couldn't work somewhere else, or because I didn't like want to go for bigger opportunities. So I just kind of settled to work for the NAACP, or I settled to work for the CBC. And that's not the case at all. Like, my work was a very conscious decision, and like I wanted to be a part of this change. I very well could have, you know, applied to work at different mainstream organizations that I also support, but it was a very conscious decision. It wasn't at all, just in like little remarks that I've been hearing from people, I feel like people think that I kind of just like was left with this work, but I chose to work in this area. Like, I wanted to work in this area. This was a decision that I made, and I'm really proud of that decision.
Well, that's always great when you like feel fulfilled in your work and you feel like you're making a difference. And I can definitely see that you're doing that. And I guess when you are in a position where you see that there's change that we can be made, in my opinion, it would make me feel like, okay, I know we're doing all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, we're still seeing people die from, you know, for the smallest of things, just fighting for basic human rights. So where do you feel like we as a community or we as a society are missing the mark in terms of creating change?
Well, I am hoping that this past month and a half, you know, is just us getting started with implementing real change. I know that it takes a village, or they say, you know, it takes a village, but this past month has shown that it really takes the whole nation coming together. Like, the chant that Black people have been chanting for the past month and a half, we've been chanting our whole lives. We've been chanting
Right.
since the dawn of time. It's nothing new. Like, we didn't just find out that Black Lives Matter. We've known. It literally took everyone, and I mean everyone, no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from, all over the nation, all over the world, to actually care and to start protesting and be loud for any change to happen. So I'm hoping that some of the changes that are happening now are substantial changes. I know that there's so much that Black people can do together, so much that we can do alone within our own community, and so much that we can get through, but we can't do all the work by ourselves. Like, we can't do everything by ourselves. We can't change 300 years worth of history overnight by ourselves. We need everyone's help, and this is going to be like a joint effort. And I feel like now that it appears as though it is more of a joint effort, we will continue to see more actual change and progress.
So going off of that, what do you think is the first step to seeing, tangible action items, and what ideas might you have that you could contribute towards making a change?
So I think that everything that we've been seeing are tangible action items. Like, within the past month alone, there's been reform of police departments. We passed Breonna Taylor's law. Different corporations, like I said, have started changing their policies. They're making attempts to be more inclusive. Obviously, the protests have sparked so much positive change. Even the NAACP, last Monday, we won the Supreme Court DACA case and we beat Trump in court. So there are so many things that are happening every day, every week. I do think I'm more aware to the change, and I can like see the little change a little bit more since I'm in this field. Like, even when I'm talking to my boyfriend, he's always like, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And I'm like, well, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. It's just that not everybody knows all of our wins. I feel like they're not as broadcasted as much as, the losses are. So I do think that we're making a lot of tangible action items, and a lot of change has been occurring in the past, and I hope continues to pass. We just need to bring more light to all the positive things that are happening as well.
Right. And especially like you were saying, like, if you're not in that career field, if you're not like in the know, it might appear as if, okay, well, I just watched TV and 3 of my people were killed by the police, or a trans woman was just killed. Like, you know what I mean? So I definitely agree that like they are broadcasting more of the losses than the wins. But, what are some things that the listeners can do if they want to take action but don't necessarily know where to start? Do you have any things you would suggest, resources?
Of course. I don't want this podcast to sound like an NAACP ad or anything, but we do have great resources, and those are the ones that I know of the most since I work for them. I would say one resource is NAACP/WeAreDoneDying, NAACP.org/WeAreDoneDying. We have a whole We Are Done Dying campaign that we actually originally launched before the past month and a half, before George Floyd and everything. And it was originally geared towards COVID and the disproportionate effects that COVID has on Black people.
Ooh, I love
and
that.
How we're done dying in that matter. But with everything, that happened, we obviously had to shift gears and start focusing on, in general, in America, Black people are done dying for any reason that's unnecessary, period. And you can fill out a form there. You can get a lot of information there. You can learn about more about what we're doing, and you can sign up for more information. If you are a young person, or if you're in college, I know young people and people in college have the hardest time finding resources, or some things that they can do, like, as a 15, 16-year-old. You can follow our Youth in College Instagram, or we have a Facebook, Twitter, anything. You can follow our Youth in College division. Their Instagram is NAACPYC, so Youth College. And they post every day. They post so many resources. They keep you in the know. I even follow them just so that I can know everything that's going on, everything that like our young Black people can be involved in, ways that they can help, what's going on. So I would say NAACP.org/WeAreDoneDying, and our Youth in College NAACP Instagram account if you're under 25.
Okay, those are awesome. And then I have 2 more questions for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself still doing the political activism? What are you interested in doing?
Okay. I definitely see myself still doing political activism. I think my dream job would be to be a press secretary or a communications director or even a chief of staff for a Black politician whom I love and support all of their ideals. For example, if Stacey Abrams had won governor, I would have moved to Atlanta at the drop of a hat and applied to every job on her campaign. From working on the Hill, I know that I love working for representatives now and elected officials, and through working at the NAACP and all my other positions, I know that I love representing that people that look like me and helping people's constituents that look like me. So in 5 years, I see myself working for a political figure in some manner, either as a press secretary for them or a communications director for them.
Well, please manifest that into the atmosphere,
of course.
the universe. And then yes, absolutely. Honestly, like that's really all we can do is just you put good out into the world and hope it comes back.
Absolutely.
But the last question I have, obviously the name of the mini-series is called In This Black Body. So what do you love about being in a Black body? Maybe in a Black woman's body.
What do I love about being in a Black body? I have never been asked that question or heard that question before. It's not a hard question. I love everything about being in a Black body. I love my thick hair. I love my brown skin. I love my curves. I love that when you see me or when anyone sees me and they see my features, they know the history that my ancestors have overcome. I love everything about being Black, everything about being in a Black body. Yeah, there's nothing I don't love about my Black body. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love that so much. But thank you so much, Austyn, for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's been so long, but do you have any social handles that you want to share with the listeners? Sure.
I can share my Instagram. My Instagram is Austyn Powers. So AUSTYN Powers. And you guys can all follow me on the gram.
All right, well, that will do it for part 2 of the In This Black Body series. Stay tuned for the 3rd and final part of the series coming soon. Sending you love and a sprinkle of gold. Until next time, bye guys.